You are standing in a dealership right now, or you are about to be, and the salesperson is pointing at something shiny and telling you the repayments are less than your phone bill. Here is what they are not telling you. 3 years from now, that same vehicle could hand you a transmission quote that costs more than the deposit you just put down, a parts weight measured in weeks because the importer does not stock them, or a resale figure so ugly you will feel physically ill signing the trade-in paperwork. This list exists so that does not happen to you. Number 7. The Jeep Compass. The Compass is the one that sneaks up on people, and I mean that literally. The Grand Cherokee has a reputation everyone knows about. The Wrangler has a cult following so devoted they will defend it through 3 gearbox replacements and still post 5-star reviews. But the Compass, it just sits there looking perfectly reasonable. Affordable entry into an American brand, decent interior for the money, capable enough all-wheel drive variants. Nothing about it screams danger in the showroom. That is precisely the problem. Here is what is waiting for you on the other side of the purchase. The Compass runs a 9-speed automatic gearbox that has generated complaints since the day it launched. Hunting between gears, hesitation on takeoff, shuddering at low speed in traffic. Consumer Reports in America has flagged transmission concerns on this vehicle repeatedly. Now I will be fair, because I always am. Australian owners have had a more mixed experience than the Americans, some perfectly happy, some not. But even if you are one of the lucky ones with a gearbox that behaves itself, the transmission is only half the story. The other half is what happens the moment something, anything, goes wrong. Jeep's dealer network in Australia is thin, not invisible, but thin. Capital city owner, probably manageable. Regional owner, you are looking at a drive to get it seen, a wait to get it diagnosed, and a separate wait for parts to arrive. That is 3 separate inconveniences stacked on top of each other before anyone has touched a spanner. And then there is the warranty. Jeep is the only mainstream brand in this country that caps its warranty at 100,000 kilometers. Every other brand offers unlimited kilometers. Jeep draws a hard line, hands you the keys, and says, after this, you are on your own. I have thought about that policy a lot over 32 years, and the conclusion I keep arriving at is the same one. A company that will not warrant its own vehicle past 100,000 kilometers is a company that knows something about what happens after 100,000 kilometers. They are not telling you, but the policy is the depreciation compounds all of it. 3-year-old Compass examples are sitting on used car lots at discounts that tell you very clearly what the broader market has decided about long-term ownership. A quick word before we go on. Most people spend thousands of dollars repairing cars long before they actually need to. Professional mechanics have known for decades that a handful of simple habits can make almost any vehicle last far longer. And I've gathered 101 of those insider secrets into a book called The Mechanic's Bible. I won't mention it again. If you'd like a copy, the link is in the description. You pay a reasonable price new, you watch that price disappear faster than almost anything else in the segment. That is not bad luck. That is the market pricing in what it knows. The honest catch, and I always give you one, the diesel variant, the 1.3 multi-jet, carries a better real-world reliability reputation than the petrol. If you are genuinely set on a Compass and nothing I have said has moved you, look at the diesel. But go in knowing the dealer network has limits, and do not expect the resale to soften the blow, because it will not. Number 6. The Volkswagen Tiguan, specifically the pre-2024 DSG variants. Before the Tiguan owners start composing their angry comments, let me be precise, because precision is the whole point of this list, and the Tiguan situation is one where being imprecise does real damage to real people making real financial decisions. I am not saying every Tiguan is a rolling disaster. Some of them are genuinely good cars, and Volkswagen has done serious work improving the platform over the years. I will give them that. What I am saying is something more specific and more important than a blanket condemnation. There is a very large number of used Tiguans in the Australian market right now, sitting in private driveways, sitting on used car lots with clean interiors and reasonable kilometers, and prices that look attractive next to a new one. And a meaningful portion of those vehicles have the DQ200 dry clutch DSG gearbox underneath them, and that gearbox has a history in this country that is well documented, well recorded, and genuinely ugly. The DQ200 is the 7-speed dual clutch automatic that Volkswagen fitted across a generation of smaller engined vehicles. The complaints are consistent wherever you look: shuddering at low speed, hesitation on takeoff, hunting in traffic in a way that makes you feel like the car cannot make up its mind, recall after recall issued to address it, and sitting underneath all of that gearbox history is something even heavier: the Dieselgate penalty, $125 million, handed to Volkswagen by the ACCC, the largest penalty of its kind in Australian consumer law history at the time. Not for a faulty part, not for a manufacturing defect that slipped through quality control, for deliberate systematic emissions cheating. I want to be clear about something: that fine was not for the gearbox. Those are two separate issues, but they share a brand, and that brand history does not disappear because the new model year brochure has arrived. It sits there, quietly, over every used example, on every lot in the country. Here is why 2026 specifically is the year this matters most. The used Tiguan market has never been bigger. Pre-2024 examples are everywhere, and the pricing looks genuinely tempting against a new car. But the buyer does not always know which gearbox is underneath. The seller does not always volunteer it. Some sellers do not even know themselves. And the moment that warranty runs out, the education begins. It is an expensive education. I have watched it happen more than once in my workshop, and it is never a pleasant conversation. What car in Britain consistently places Volkswagen in the lower half of their reliability rankings? Australia's own satisfaction survey had Volkswagen dead last, 21st of 21 brands surveyed last year. The post-2024 Tiguan is a genuinely different car. Revised platform, wet clutch DSG, proper improvement across the electronics. If you are buying new, that is a different conversation and a fairer one. But if you are buying used, check the build date, check the gearbox code, get a pre-purchase inspection from someone who has no interest in the sale, and if anyone tries to move you towards signing without allowing both of those things, treat that resistance as the answer to a question you had not thought to ask yet. Number 5, the Land Rover Discovery Sport. Right. I'm going to say something kind first because the Discovery Sport genuinely deserves it. In terms of interior quality, refinement, and real off-road capability in a package that does not look like a military vehicle, the Discovery Sport is one of the best things in its class. I mean that. The engineers did good work. It is genuinely capable and genuinely beautiful. I also genuinely dread seeing one come through my workshop doors after 70,000 kilometers, because what follows is never cheap and is rarely quick. What car in Britain, which surveys tens of thousands of real owners, puts Land Rover in the bottom 5 of every brand they test, year after year? Not the bottom 5 once, consistently. The two areas that come up again and again are the air suspension and the electronics. The Discovery Sport runs adaptive air suspension on some variants, and the compressor and the bags are not cheap when they go, and they go. The electronics are the other chapter. Modern Land Rovers are extraordinarily complex vehicles from a software perspective. Multiple modules, multiple systems talking to each other, multiple things that can throw fault codes that require dealer-level diagnostic equipment to clear. And Land Rover's dealer network in Australia, while not as thin as Jeep's, is not the Toyota network either. In regional areas, you are looking at a significant drive and a significant wait. Here is the financial reality that I think genuinely shocks people who have not run the numbers. A Discovery Sport loses somewhere in the vicinity of 45 to 50% of its value over 5 years. So you are buying a car that in 5 years is worth roughly half what you paid. And in those same 5 years, if you have come out of warranty, you will have spent real money keeping it running. I had a customer bring me a 2020 Discovery Sport last year. 78,000 kilometers, air suspension compressor gone, 2 electronic modules throwing codes. The quote, "Before I even got to the modules in detail, made him go very quiet. He had bought it thinking he was getting a deal on a prestige SUV. He was getting a lesson in the difference between prestige and reliability. I will say this plainly. Buy a Discovery Sport with your head, not your heart. And if your heart is louder than your head, at least make sure you have a very healthy extended warranty and a very patient attitude toward dealership waiting rooms." Number 4. The Nissan Pathfinder. I genuinely do not enjoy putting the Pathfinder on this list. I want to say that up front because I am not in the business of kicking cars that do not deserve it, and the Pathfinder does a lot of things right. 3 rows of seats that actual human adults can fit into, reasonable cargo space, a comfortable settled ride that families appreciate on long trips, and Nissan as a brand is genuinely improving. The 10-year warranty they offer, conditional on servicing with them, is a real statement of confidence. Not every brand will put their name on a vehicle for a decade. I respect that. But the Pathfinder runs a continuously variable transmission, a CVT, and the CVT is the thing I cannot walk past, no matter how much I like the rest of the package. It sits there like a polite but a persistent problem, and in 2026, with the competition the Pathfinder is up against, I cannot in good conscience leave it off this list. Now I'm going to be careful here, because precision matters, and I promised you it would. The big CVT court cases and the class actions were American, not Australian. Over here it is more of an owner forum concern than a proven legal epidemic, and I will not overstate it. I said exactly that in my full brand ranking, and I will say it again because exaggerating a problem to make a point is the same dishonesty I am here to protect you from. Different direction, same result. But here is what I actually see on the hoist, and what I read in owner communities across this country from people who have nothing to gain by complaining. CVTs are not universally terrible. I will not say that, and I do not believe it. But they are not universally robust either. They are sensitive to heat in a way that a conventional torque converter automatic simply is not. They are sensitive to towing loads. They do not respond well to the kind of driving that Australian families do without even thinking about it, because it is just their life. Long freeway runs on a 40-degree day, towing a small box trailer to the tip, repeated stop-start in Brisbane or Sydney traffic for 100,000 kilometres. A corrugated dirt road somewhere in central Queensland on the way to a long weekend. None of that is extreme use, none of that is abuse. That is just Tuesday in this country. And when a CVT lets go in a Pathfinder, you are not looking at a minor repair that stings for a week and is forgotten. You are looking at a significant bill. The units are not cheap to rebuild. Reconditioned units are not always available locally, which means you are frequently looking at a new unit at full import pricing. That conversation happens in my workshop, and it is not a short one. The comparison that keeps nagging at me, the one I cannot shake, is this. For a genuinely similar price, a family of 5 can be sitting in a Kia Sorento, conventional torque, converter automatic gearbox, 7-year unlimited kilometre warranty, with no servicing strings attached whatsoever. Kia finished 5th in Australia's own 2025 reliability study, ahead of Toyota, ahead of Hyundai. That is not a rounding error. That is not a fluke result from one good year. That is a brand that has done the work and earned the number. The Pathfinder is not a bad car. I want to end on that because it is true and it is fair. It is a car with a drivetrain question mark stapled to it. And in 2026, in a 3-row family SUV segment that has never been more competitive or more value-packed, a question mark is an extraordinarily expensive thing to carry into a purchase you're going to live with for the next 7 years. Number 3, the Mitsubishi Eclipse Cross, specifically the 1.5 turbo petrol. I want to own something before I explain this entry because I always will. I rate Mitsubishi. I have said it on this channel before, and I will say it again. The old 3.2 litre Pajero diesel is one of the genuinely great Australian touring engines. I have watched them sail past 300,000 kilometres out in the bush doing actual work. Mitsubishi knows how to build mechanical things that last. Their 10-year warranty on the Triton is a serious statement, which is exactly why the Eclipse Cross with the 1.5 turbo petrol frustrates me, because it is a good brand putting a mediocre engine in a pretty body and hoping nobody notices until the warranty runs out. The 1.5 turbo, badged the 8B in Mitsubishi's lineup, has developed a reputation for oil consumption that sits outside what I consider normal for a modern engine at low mileage. Not every example, not even most examples, but enough examples documented across enough owner forums and enough independent workshop reports that I would not buy one without a compression test and an oil consumption check first. Beyond the engine itself, the Eclipse Cross as a package simply does not measure up against what its money buys in 2026. The infotainment system lags behind competitors. The touchpad interface, which Mitsubishi persisted with long after every owner made clear they hated it, is the kind of ergonomic decision that suggests the people making it had never actually used it in a moving vehicle. I'm not being uncharitable. I'm quoting the comments of people who own them. The naturally aspirated 2.4 litre Eclipse Cross and the PHEV variant are different stories. The 2.4 is a simpler engine with a more straightforward track record. The PHEV is genuinely interesting technology and drives better than the turbo petrol. If you are in the Eclipse Cross showroom, those are the ones worth your time. But the 1.5 turbo petrol in 2026, with that engine history and that price point, competing against a Kia Sportage and a Subaru Forester, I cannot recommend it with a straight face. And recommending things with a straight face is the entire reason this channel exists. Number 2, the Haval Jolion and the H6, pre-2023 specifically. Right. This is where the comments are going to get interesting. So let me say the quiet part loud before anyone accuses me of being anti-Chinese car. I am not anti-Chinese car. I said it clearly in my brand ranking, and I will say it again. GWM, which owns Haval, was number 1 in Australia's own satisfaction survey last year. Number 1 in the whole country. BYD is doing genuinely impressive things. These are not the rubbish cars people remember from 15 years ago. The build quality has improved dramatically. The safety ratings are genuine. I watch this space closely because I have to. But here is the honest truth about the pre-2023 Haval Jolion and H6, and this is the specific, precise thing I need you to hear. The early Australian market Jolion and H6 ran a 7-speed wet dual-clutch transmission that generated a volume of owner complaints in the early years of local sales that is not consistent with the satisfaction survey rankings those cars were earning. The complaints were consistent: shuddering, hesitation, jerky low-speed behavior, and the gap between what the satisfaction surveys were saying and what owner forums were documenting suggests to me that the survey responses were coming from people still in the honeymoon phase of ownership. Now, GWM acknowledged the issue, software updates were issued, the problem improved, and the post-2023 models are genuinely better. I want to say that clearly, but here is the trap for 2026 buyers. The used Jolion and H6 market is now full of pre-2023 examples. They look like a bargain. They are relatively new cars at used car prices. And a buyer who does not know the specific build date to look for and the specific transmission history to ask about is walking straight into a situation that will cost them. And there is a second problem that I do not think gets discussed enough: long-term parts availability and resale. These brands have not been in Australia long enough to have a 10-year track record on either. The satisfaction surveys measure happy new owners. They do not measure the person trying to sell a 5-year-old Jolion in 2028 and discovering the market has decided something about its value that no survey predicted. I am not saying avoid all Chinese SUVs. I am saying know which ones, which model years, and which transmissions. An honest mechanic has to say it out loud. Number 1. The Jeep Grand Cherokee. The V6 petrol variant specifically. I opened this whole list talking about regret, and if I had to point at one vehicle in the Australian SUV market in 2026 that carries the highest regret risk for the most people, for the most reasons, it is this one. I want to be clear about something first. The Grand Cherokee is not a poorly engineered vehicle in the way a genuine lemon is poorly engineered. The platform is capable. The interior on the upper trims is genuinely impressive. The off-road hardware on the Trailhawk variant is serious equipment. I am not dismissing the engineering. What I am dismissing is the combination of this drivetrain, this brand, this warranty, and this price point in 2026. Because that combination, in my view, represents the worst value equation in the Australian SUV market right now. Here is how the maths works. You spend somewhere in the range of $65,000 to $85,000 on a Grand Cherokee V6 petrol. You get a 5-star ANCAP rating, a premium interior, and a badge that still carries weight in certain social situations. I understand that. I am not making fun of it. What you also get is Jeep's 100,000 kilometer warranty cap, which I mentioned in the Compass section, and which remains the single most revealing fact about this brand's confidence in its own product. The V6 petrol engine in the current Grand Cherokee is a Pentastar, a 3.6 litre unit that has been in production since 2011. That sounds like a mature, proven engine. In some ways it is. But in Australian conditions, in a heavy 3-row SUV, asked to work hard in heat, it has a documented appetite for oil that sits above what modern engines should consume. It also has a documented history of water pump failure and a timing chain that requires attention earlier than the service intervals would suggest. Consumer Reports in America has flagged the Grand Cherokee repeatedly for reliability concerns in recent years. And Jeep, as a brand, has sat at the bottom or near the bottom of every major reliability ranking I consult, consistently, not occasionally. Then there is the recall history here in Australia. Over 43,000 Grand Cherokees recalled for a fuel pump that can cut power while you are driving. That is not a minor inconvenience recall. That is a fundamental safety concern, and it went to over 43,000 vehicles. Now add the depreciation. A 3-year-old Grand Cherokee has lost value at a rate that would make a Toyota owner genuinely uncomfortable. The used market for Jeeps in Australia reflects what the market thinks about long-term ownership costs. Dealers know, private buyers are starting to know, and the only people who do not always know are the ones standing in the showroom looking at the interior and thinking, this is almost as nice as a Range Rover for $60,000 less. Which brings me to the thing I say to people in my workshop who are considering one. I understand why it is tempting. I genuinely do. The Grand Cherokee looks the part. It drives reasonably well. And compared to a German prestige SUV or a Land Rover, it feels like a bargain. But it is a bargain the way a cheap boat is a bargain. The purchase price is just the beginning of the conversation. The one honest exception I will give you. The Grand Cherokee with the 3-litre diesel, if you can find a clean example with verified history, is a meaningfully different proposition to the V6 petrol. The diesel suits Australian touring conditions better, it is more efficient, and the torque characteristics suit the weight of the vehicle. If you are committed to the Grand Cherokee and you do not want to hear anything else, at least make it the diesel. But the V6 petrol at that price, with that warranty from that brand, in 2026, that is the one I would tell my own family to walk straight past. And I do not say that lightly because I understand that people make financial decisions with their heart as much as their head, and telling someone to walk away from something they love is not a comfortable thing. It is, however, the truth. And that is the only thing this channel trades in, the honest other side, right? Because fair is fair. And I am not going to leave you thinking every single person who owns one of these is doomed. The Jeep Compass diesel is a better bet than the petrol. The Volkswagen Tiguan from 2024 onward with the wet clutch DSG is a properly improved car and worth considering new. The Land Rover Discovery Sport, pampered, under warranty, and bought by someone who genuinely loves cars and can absorb the ownership costs, is one of the most capable and refined vehicles in its class, full stop. I just want you to go in knowing what you are signing up for. The Nissan Pathfinder suits buyers who do not tow, drive mostly city and highway, and service it diligently. That CVT, treated well, can go the distance. The Mitsubishi Eclipse Cross PHAV is a genuinely interesting piece of technology, and the naturally aspirated version is a straightforward, honest car. The pre-2023 Haval, if you can get a full service history, a verified software update record, and a pre-purchase inspection from a mechanic who knows the transmission, can be bought sensibly. And the Grand Cherokee Diesel Trailhawk, for someone who needs genuine off-road capability at a price point below Land Rover, is not a stupid choice if they go in with their eyes open. The theme across all of that is the same. Not the badge, not the brochure. The specific variant, the specific engine, the specific model year, that is what determines whether you are buying a good car or an expensive lesson. Every one of these vehicles has a marketing team that worked very hard to get them into your head as the right choice. They picked the right music for the ad. They found the most flattering angle for the press photos. They wrote the warranty headline in the biggest font on the brochure. None of them has 32 years of pulling apart what actually goes wrong. I do. And what I know after 32 years is that regret in a car purchase almost never comes from making a slow, considered decision with documented data. It almost always comes from making a fast, emotional one with a good-looking interior and a finance rate that felt manageable at the time. So take the list, use it, ask the uncomfortable questions at the dealership, get the pre-purchase inspection, check the model year and the engine code, and if the salesperson gets uncomfortable when you ask about the warranty cap or the transmission history, treat that discomfort as information, because it is. I want to hear from you now because you lot always know things I do not. Have you owned one of these? Did it earn its place on this list or prove me wrong? The owners who have gone the distance with one of these without a drama are just as useful to me as the ones who got burned. Drop it in the comments. I read them. Fair warning, I will argue with a few of you. That is just who I am. If a mechanic telling you the truth with nothing to sell is worth something to you, you know what to do with that subscribe button. Look after yourselves. Buy the track record, not the badge. And for the love of everything, check the engine code before you sign anything.